Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Elijah Isham / We Knives Pleroma. Very, very interesting piece, and been looking forward to reviewing this one for a little while. So, there you go. First off, I want to thank my Patreon patrons who make it very possible for me to just say, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and order one of those. Just makes life a lot easier, and that's great. Next thing, let's do a size comparison. As always, here it is against the Spyderco Delica, as usual. So you can see that this is actually not a very large knife, particularly. Here it is against the Ontario Rat number 1, and here it is with your Rat number 2. And so, again, in terms of overall size, not a huge thing. So there you go. Next thing, here it is against the Kaiser Knives Minitherium, which in many ways is the closest knife out there to this, just in terms of its overall approach to the world, although these are very, very different, practically speaking. And, I think that ought to do it for size comparisons right quick. Then finally, a couple of other quick notes. This is a design by Elijah Isham. You can see right there's his maker's mark, and it is the Pleroma. And Pleroma is, of course, a reference to Gnostic theology, spiritual fulfillment, also the full powers of the divine. That is absolutely quite the name, as one of my Instagram people put it. That's the boldest name since Life Cereal, but still, it's definitely quite the name. But that's what it means. So, anyways, and then Elijah Isham is a designer I've talked about actually a fair amount on the channel before, with the Minitherium, with the Megatherium for that matter, with a bunch of other crazy stuff. And here we go. This is the Bestech Reticulon. I'm not quite sure what it is, but either way, another Isham design that happens to be on my table at the moment. So let's go ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this very interesting knife right here. Okay, so on the good side, to start with, this has a very, very nice little clip in terms of practical use. You can see here you've got plenty of ramp to it. It's got plenty of height. No freaking problem there, and it curves well with the handle, which is smooth underneath it. No real issues. I mean, the clip, certainly ergonomically, we'll talk about that a little later, but the simple fact is that the clip works well for carrying, and in fact, the size of this guy works very well for carry as well. If I put this guy up next to the Spyderco Delica, what you can see here is that although it's a little weirdly bent, it is roughly in that same department. It's a little thicker. This is a little bit of a chubby bunny here, but it's a nice little size, and it carries relatively well in the pocket, what with that clip. And the blade length on this guy overall is coming in, someplace in the vicinity of 3 inches there, which means no matter how angry the cop is with you, generally speaking, you ought to be okay in a lot of places. Check your local laws. So, there you go. Next thing, this guy is relatively light, given that it has all of the, there's a whole bunch of cutouts in this guy. We're coming in here at 2.65 ounces for 3 inches of blade or so. That's great. No complaints with it there. Next thing, this guy is really well made. I mean, We Knives is doing really great fit and finish work these days, and this is no exception whatsoever. We can see here as everything matches up beautifully. All of these titanium bits look great, with the half-integral design, just absolutely stellar. This is a knife that is made beautifully. The action is great as well. Actually, I can just mention that too. The action is really great on this. But overall, I mean, this is another case of We Knives showing off that they are really, really good at making high-end production knives. I mean, the fit and finish here are basically perfect. There's really nothing I can complain about, and that's pretty excellent. And actually, that brings us to the next point, which is that action. This knife has a very nice action to it. 100%. You can very easily deploy it using the beautifully tuned detent for the thumb stud. You can also get your fingernail up in here, and if I can do this, it's really hard to do this under a camera, by the way. But anyways, it flicks pretty effectively as well, using your index finger or your middle finger. There's no complaints there, and, it's on bearings, and it's beautifully done. The action on this is spectacular. Next thing, this guy is got a very nice blade to it. So the blade on this guy is M390, which I don't know that you're even going to be able to see the label there. See, M390 right there, which is one of the best blade steels, if not the best blade steel for everyday carry. It is ground beautifully with a nice thin edge. You can see right there at the tip as well as down here. It's very clear that they've tried very hard to grind this guy so it will cut, and it absolutely will cut. And actually, the stock thickness isn't bad whatsoever. as well. I mean, you can see here, stock thickness-wise, we're in the same vicinity as the Spyderco Delica, maybe a little bit thicker. And that's pretty impressive. That is, yeah, and so I'm a big fan of the blade overall here. You've got a sharpening choil here. I mean, this is a blade that really does work. And that's not super common these days in the knife world. And so I love that very much. This is a great blade for that. And actually, one final thing on the blade, it is a nice angle for cutting flat onto a table. This is one thing that Elijah Isham does pretty well with a lot of knives, for instance. You can see here that your hand is actually sitting a fair amount above the knife and above the blade, which is great if you're cutting, into something that's ahead of you. But if you're cutting down onto something, that's not as stellar. Whereas on this guy, the way this handle is designed, your hand is going to be kind of up and back above the blade. So really, it's pretty easy to get down onto something that you're cutting on, like a cutting board or something like that. This is not necessarily the great knife for food prep, although you could certainly use it that way, but it's well designed in that domain. It has some disadvantages, certainly, but at the same time, that works well. And then finally, on the good side, this is a weird knife. I mean, seriously, it's Elijah Isham doing the thing he does best again, which is to make these really weird freaking designs. You take one look at this like, oh, Elijah's up to it again. And this is a really weird design. It's sort of like a swayback at some level with the trailing behind of the blade. I don't even know how to describe it. But then you've got this weird half-integral thing that we'll talk about in a second here. I mean, and then you've got the big hole in the blade with the floating thumb stud. I mean, this is just so damn weird. You take one look at this and like, okay, I haven't seen that lately. And I love that. So, to me at least, that's excellent. And I find it to be a pretty attractive knife as well. That's certainly not universally shared, but at the same time, I like it a lot. And I like the fact that it is really designed. A lot of Elijah's stuff feels like it was designed first and then he made it a really great knife, rather than something where it's just, form follows function, that kind of thing. So to me, all of that is the good. Is that it's Elijah being weird again and creating a great design. It's got a good angle for cutting flat on tables with a really nice blade. It is relatively light, very carryable, with a decent clip, a great blade, and a very nice action with basically perfect fit and finish. On the great side, this is absolutely a unique knife in terms of its construction. So watch the disassembly video. More so than most, I encourage you to watch that video, because what that'll do is it'll show you how this guy is actually constructed. But what you can see here is that you've got sort of an underframe here that is integral. This whole chunk here is one single piece of titanium. And in fact, you can disassemble this knife just by removing the pivot screw. You don't even need to worry about the stuff in the back here. That's not even a factor there. And then you've got on top of that a floating, one of these is floating here such that you can then remove, and then you get a little ring here that you can reinsert the bearings through. This is just so freaking weird. It has a great approach to bearing access. You also have this unique floating thumb stud thing going on here, which is unusual, and it's just he's using this sort of floating liner lock, although it's not. Yeah, I guess it's a liner lock, but it's not the liner. I don't even know what the heck it's called. It's just, and plus it's got this unique rest of it. I mean, the whole thing is a pretty unique take on like the swayback design. To me, what's great about this knife is that it is unusual, not just in its look, because there are lots of knives that look a little weird, but this is unusual to its core. Like every part of this during the disassembly, it was like, it's brilliantly designed. It is and I want to make that very clear. Like from a disassembly standpoint, from a long-term maintenance standpoint, I feel like this is a brilliant design. It's well done, and once I got it, it was like, oh, really smart. But it's unusual, it's different, and that's great to me. We need to be seeing more people doing things that are demonstrably unique. On the bad side, the price on this guy is a little steep. We're looking at $300 here. Now, look, that's not a price where I'm like, oh my God, no, that's terrible, because it's M390. It's beautifully made. It's uniquely made. It's not like, oh my God, what are you doing, Elijah? No, it's not the situation here, but it is a little bit steep. And the days of wee knives meaning aggressive value seem to be behind us. They've now realized that they're making really great knives and they're charging premium prices for this. That's not bad, but it's, well, I mean, I'd like to see more value. We'll put it that way. But I don't feel like they're ripping my face off either, given the quality that we have on the table. So that's first bad thing. The only other bad thing I can think of, and it actually is kind of bad for me, is the ergonomics on this guy aren't so stellar for me. Pardon me, the biggest element, biggest issue, biggest problem is this little area right here. The pocket clip, as you can see here, actually sticks up a fair amount above the actual handle of the knife, and so as a result, when I'm really trying to bear down on this, it is absolutely digging into my hand right here and then along the back there. I get it. It needs to have a pocket clip, and that pocket clip needs to be high, and the pocket clip can't do the kinds of tricks that makers normally do, like to curve it the other way, that kind of thing. It can't do that. So instead, what we end up with is this little guy that's kind of riding the only contour that it has. But that's not stellar. Unfortunately, the clip just becomes a huge hotspot. I'll also say that for a lot of the cutting I do, which tends to be kind of Warncliffey drawing style cuts, this blade having this backwards angle off of the handle is kind of like it's running away from me a little bit. And so both of those things combine to make this guy, ergonomically speaking, a little less interesting than I think it may be for most. That said, I have smaller hands than most, and I've heard from a variety of people that it works better with big hands, so that is something to keep in mind. And by the way, sorry about that fan coming on. That's life. But anyways, so that is, to me, the bad here is that the ergos aren't great, at least for me personally, and it is $300, which isn't a terrible deal, but it's certainly not high value. Final conclusions, though, on this guy. My biggest feeling on this is that in a world of horses, this is a giraffe. What I mean by that is that in the knife world right now, there are so many new releases where it's just like, wow, that's the same thing. Oh, hey, look, another drop point knife. Whoa, this one's in D2. Hooray. I mean, that's the kind of world where we're living in right now, where the knife world is more boring than ever, I think. This is not boring. This is a knife that is unabashedly weird. It's unabashedly unique. And it's flouting, a lot of the things that are normally held to be true and sacred. I mean, how often do you see a modern swayback knife? Very rarely. How often do you see it built like this? Well, freaking never. And so this knife, more than anything, serves as a reminder to the world, like, guys, you don't have to make a knife like that. This is something that Elijah has been very good at for a long time now. All of his designs are a little bit like pushing the edge, like, hey, we can do something weird. Ranging from the less practical, namely like the Eschaton, to the more practical designs like the We Knives Zeta, or frankly, like this guy here. It's just like a, hey, guys, there's another way. And it also, though, happens to be a very solid little cutting tool. The blade on this guy is great. It really, really does work well. The action is absolutely excellent. It's ground to cut, and it carries beautifully, too. There is really a lot to love about this guy as a practical everyday carry piece. It is a little bit pricey, like I said, although I don't feel like I said, it's that weird tension between I want the price to be lower, but I don't know that it needs to be. It's not like I'm being ripped off here. But it's a little pricey, and the ergos are, I think, where you're paying the price for the oddity here. And to me, like I said, personally, the ergos just don't work as well, and that's the reason why this isn't going to stick around in my collection. But like I said, you may be better. The best way to figure out is to try it in your hand. But mostly, to me, I'm left with the impression that this is a really impressive piece. It's proof that we don't need to be stuck in the design ruts in the community, proof that there are other ways, proof that We Knives are toward the top of the production knife game, and frankly, I just love that this exists at all. Not only that Elijah was willing to do something as crazy as this, I mean, seriously. Although it may look subtle on the table, this design is unlike anything I've seen before. But I also love that we was willing to make it well. I mean, so often in the knife world, people will do weird things, but they'll kind of do them half-heartedly, whereas this is just like, yes, I'm going to make this weird thing, and I'm going to do it great. And so I love that, and I want to see more people, whether it's Elijah or other folks, trying these kinds of weird things and designs and builds and approaches and things like that. I want to see people working with companies and trying crazy things, because that's how the field grows. I mean, every major innovation was a crazy thing at first, and so I love, love, love seeing this kind of weirdness, this kind of innovation. And I think that the Pleroma is a knife that is weird and innovative, but is also a pretty solid everyday carry choice. So if you like it, if you like the looks, that is, if you like the overall kind of aesthetic and effect, and if it works well in your hand, then by God, you're going to love the Pleroma. But, yeah, so there you go. I hope this has been interesting to you, and that you have yourselves a wonderful rest of your day, and that the plurality of the, that was trying to go for plurality, but that failed. I don't even know. I can't make Pleroma into a pun. I'm sorry. Well, alas, this was not the sum total of divine humor. That didn't work either. Damn. All right, I'm giving up now. Have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of the day. Bye now.